Today, we're diving into a wild 72 hours that really put Pi Network through a trial by fire. Right at the very start of 2026, the project got hit with a security crisis, a bizarre technical mystery, and a massive economic test, all at the same time. So let's break down exactly what went down.
So, picture this. While most of us were getting ready to ring in the new year, the party for Pi Network got cut short. On the absolute last day of 2025, the first part of its big test began.
And this whole thing played out over 3 key days. We had the security breach on December 31st, then this really strange mystery on January 1st, and finally, we saw how the community reacted to it all on January 2nd.
All right, so let's start with that first shock to the system. And this wasn't just one problem. It was this rapid-fire 1-2 punch of a hack and a super weird event that left a lot of people just scratching their heads.
Now, the attack on December 31st, it's really important to get this. It wasn't a failure of the Pi blockchain's code. Nope. Instead, it was a classic case of what we call social engineering. Basically, the attackers went after the users directly through trickery. It's a huge reminder that in any crypto project, the people involved can sometimes be the most vulnerable link in the chain.
So how'd they do it? Well, their method was surprisingly simple, but pretty effective. Hackers just scanned the public blockchain, found wallets holding a lot of Pi, and then blasted them with fake payment requests that were often made to look like official messages. It worked well enough that the core team had to jump in and freeze the entire payment request feature just to stop the bleed.
And the damage? Yeah, it was significant. Before they could shut it down, the attackers had already made off with over 4.4 million Pi coins right out of people's wallets.
To put that into perspective, based on the market prices at the time, we're talking about a loss of nearly $880,000. What a painful way for those folks to start the new year.
Then, on New Year's Day, just when you thought things couldn't get any weirder, they did. A staggering 5 billion Pi coins suddenly appeared in circulation, and then just vanished about an hour later. The big question was, what on earth just happened? Was this some kind of catastrophic system bug, or was it a deliberate stress test by the core team to see if the network could even handle that kind of volume?
But here's the kicker. The shocks from the hack and that whole 5 billion coin mystery were just the beginning. The network was also facing a massive, and this time planned, challenge. You could argue it was its biggest economic test ever.
I mean, to really get the scale of this, just look at these numbers. In December 2025, about 8.7 million new coins were unlocked. Okay, but in January, that number just exploded to over 134 million. That's a 15-fold increase in new supply hitting the market in a single month. Insane.
And when you put a dollar value on that, it's pretty staggering. We're talking about roughly $27 million worth of new Pi coins that could potentially be sold, all flooding in during the month of January alone.
So what does that actually do to an economy? Well, a huge flood of new supply creates something called selling pressure. Basically, if there aren't enough new buyers to soak up all those new coins, the price is almost certainly going to drop. This was a real deal test of the currency's stability.
Okay, so you're facing a security crisis and this immense economic pressure. How does the network even begin to fight back? Well, this gets us to the core of Pi's whole long-term strategy, building a really strong defense by creating actual real-world utility and demand.
Their game plan is all about building a real breathing ecosystem. They're pouring money into new projects with their venture fund, getting into things like Web3 gaming. They've got a pipeline of over 215 new apps ready to go live. And they're taking smart steps to create demand for the coin itself, like making it the main currency for trading on their exchange.
Of course, the network's greatest weapon has always been its massive community. I mean, out of 60 million registered users, almost 16 million of them are fully on the mainnet. That's the live blockchain. That creates this huge built-in user base, just waiting to use those 215 new apps.
Behind the scenes, the team is also seriously beefing up the technology. They're testing protocol updates to make transactions more efficient, using AI to cut down the time it takes to do identity verification, the KYC process, and they're working towards meeting major financial compliance standards. All of this is about getting the network ready for prime time and future integration with the global financial system.
So, after surviving this absolute trial by fire, where does Pi Network actually stand? The team had called 2025 a defining year. But as the dust started to settle in early 2026, the community's reaction was, let's just say, it was mixed.
Yeah, despite all that progress, a lot of the community was frustrated. Users felt like the end-of-year summary was vague and didn't give them a clear roadmap or any specific timelines for the full launch of the open mainnet, and that understandably led to some backlash.
And that brings us right here to this final summary. It really feels like Pi Network is at a crossroads. On one side, you have these huge challenges. They've got to restore trust after that hack, figure out how to absorb an unprecedented amount of new coins, and give their community a clear plan. But on the other side, their strengths are undeniable. That massive user base, a booming ecosystem, and a real commitment to tech and compliance.
Ultimately, those first 72 hours of 2026 really forced Pi Network to prove just how resilient it is. The big question for the rest of the year is whether its strengths, its community, its ecosystem, and its tech are going to be enough to overcome the immense pressure it's facing. Can it turn this trial by fire into a real triumph? That's what we're all waiting to see.